Hi, Enviro Challenger Gator here, and I want to welcome you to Orcas Love Raingarden's virtual field trip. Brought to you by Pierce Conservation District, the City of Tacoma Environmental Services Department, Enviro Challengers, Washington Environmental Council, and Defenders of Wildlife. Hi, Enviro Challenger Gator here. I'm wondering, what do orcas have to do with rain gardens? What is a rain garden? Where can I find one, and how can I help? My good friend Rob from Defenders of Wildlife made a video that will help answer these questions. What is an orca? Where do orcas live? What do orcas need to survive? And why are orcas so important? Rob?
Hey everyone, this is Rob with Defenders of Wildlife in Tacoma, Washington. And today I want to talk about orcas and why they love rain gardens. Like many of you, one of the reasons I love living in Western Washington is how close I am to the Salish Sea and all the wildlife that lives there. From sea stars and crabs to salmon and sea lions. But my favorite are the orcas. Specifically, the southern resident orcas, a unique population that lives here in the Pacific Northwest. There are 3 pods or family groups, J, K, and L, and they make up the southern resident clan. Unlike other orcas, the southern residents eat salmon instead of seals and sea lions. But regardless of the diet, all orcas live in a matriarchal society, which means that moms and grandmas are in charge of the entire group. The southern resident orcas are also extremely culturally important to the tribes and First Nations who have lived in the Northwest since time immemorial. Even though we call them residents, these orcas travel a lot. They can be seen off the coast of major cities like Tacoma, Seattle, and Vancouver. They've also been seen as far south as Monterey Bay, California. The reason they travel these long distances? Salmon. During the winter, the orcas travel up and down the west coast, searching for salmon returning to rivers like the Sacramento, Klamath, and Columbia. In the spring and summer, they are frequently seen in the North Salish Sea, waiting for salmon returning to rivers in British Columbia like the Fraser River. In the fall, salmon are returning to the Duwamish, Puyallup, and other rivers in the South Salish Sea. Once winter comes, the orcas head back out to the coast and the cycle starts all over again. Sadly, these amazing orcas are extremely endangered. In the 1960s and 70s, wild orcas were captured to be put in tanks in places like SeaWorld. Fortunately, the state of Washington banned the capture of orcas in 1976 when there were just 71 whales left in the wild. Since 1995 though, the orcas have struggled to survive, despite being protected by both the state and federal Endangered Species Act. In 2019, the population was the lowest it had been since the capture period, with only 72 orcas left in the wild. But why are these orcas struggling to survive? Scientists have identified 3 main reasons. The first is a lack of their food or prey, salmon. After years of habitat loss, dam construction, and overfishing, salmon in the Pacific Northwest are threatened with extinction too. And without enough salmon to eat, orcas will starve. A second threat is underwater noise. Like all marine mammals, southern resident orcas rely on echolocation to communicate to each other and find food. When there are too many boats on the water, it makes it hard for the orcas to find enough salmon to eat. Lastly, orcas are threatened by toxic pollution. Pollution not only kills salmon and destroys salmon habitat, leaving fewer fish for the orcas to eat, but it also contaminates salmon and can make orcas sick. So in summary, there's not enough salmon for the orcas to eat. Because of all the noise, it's hard to find the salmon, and the salmon that they do find are full of toxic pollution. Fortunately, there are ways everyone can help. If you live in Western Washington, one of the best tools we have to be better neighbors to the southern resident orcas is a rain garden. Every time that it rains in the Northwest, the rainwater collects chemicals and other toxics that we put on our lawns, driveways, roads, and buildings. This creates a toxic soup called stormwater runoff, and it's the largest source of pollution in the Salish Sea. Small plants and animals called phytoplankton and zooplankton absorb these toxic chemicals. When they're eaten by fish, the fish are also eating that pollution and building it up in their bodies. At each step of the food chain, fish become more and more polluted until eventually it reaches the orcas. Because of all this pollution, the southern resident orcas are some of the most toxic marine mammals in the world. This can make them sick and makes it very hard for them to have healthy baby orcas. Fortunately, rain gardens can help. Rain gardens are bowl-shaped gardens designed to capture, absorb, and filter stormwater runoff. By sending more stormwater into a rain garden instead of down the storm drain, we can reduce the amount of pollution reaching salmon and orcas. And that's where you come in. Students all across Tacoma have been pitching in at their schools, parks, and communities to help plant and take care of rain gardens. These gardens are important tools for our community so that we can be better neighbors to the southern resident orcas and other wildlife that live in the Salish Sea. We can all chip in to make sure that these rain gardens are healthy and taken care of, whether that garden is at home, at school, or at a park. Students from kindergarten through high school all over Tacoma have been getting their hands dirty to make a positive change for southern resident orcas. So remember, orcas love rain gardens, and everyone, including you, can be part of the solution.
Hi everyone, Leika here from Pierce Conservation District. I'd like to introduce the term watershed to you. Now when you first hear it, it might sound like a shed filled with water, but it's actually much bigger than that. A watershed is a land area that channels rainfall and snowmelt to creeks, streams, and rivers, and eventually to outflow points such as reservoirs, bays, and the ocean. Now all of that water is water that wildlife depends on, and we do too. We've gotten better at treating our wastewater over the years, but there's still another type that plagues our salmon and orca populations. This is stormwater. We'll be using a watershed model to show you how stormwater travels and moves through our cities and out to Puget Sound. Let's take a look. Many people use fertilizers and pesticides for their lawns and gardens. These are also used on farms. These excess nutrients and chemicals can cause problems later on. Some people like to wash their cars in the driveway, but this leaves all of the dirt, grime, oil, and soap until it rains again. Our waters also get polluted when we cut down too many trees and leave the soil bare, or when we don't pick up after our pets. Also, making new houses and roads can leave lots of loose sediments. You might see rainbow-lined puddles of oil from leaky cars. Sometimes people leave trash or litter on the ground. Now here is our polluted watershed. Let's see what happens when we get some rain. Our watershed gets about 40 inches of rain each year. The rain washes all of these pollutants into nearby streams and rivers, which then goes into the Sound. While we use food coloring here and not real pollutants, sometimes our storm drains really look like this because stormwater doesn't get treated like wastewater does. Scientists have found that 75% of the pollution that enters Puget Sound is from stormwater runoff. Thanks to the work of many scientists, we know that our actions are contributing most of the harm to our local wildlife. But that also means that we can be part of the solution and help protect our endangered friends.
Hi, I'm Kate, an EnviroChallenger environmental educator with the City of Tacoma. And in this video, I'm going to be sharing some information about two very important topics related to southern resident orcas: water pollution and water quality. Water pollution is one of the main reasons that southern resident orcas living in Puget Sound are threatened. Pollution is something that is introduced into the natural environment and can be harmful to plants, animals, and people. Most pollution enters local streams, lakes, and Puget Sound via stormwater runoff. Every time it rains, stormwater collects pollutants from vehicle fluids, yard chemicals, pet waste, and litter. Polluted stormwater flows from our communities through our stormwater management system and into Puget Sound without being treated, filtered, or cleaned. There, pollution can have a large impact on water habitats that wildlife like southern resident orcas depend on. Bacteria from pet waste can make water unhealthy for both wildlife and people. Litter can entangle wildlife, be mistaken for food, and leach harmful chemicals into the water. Chemical fertilizers can cause toxic algae blooms downstream, which deplete oxygen and create dead zones where wildlife cannot survive. Pollutants from stormwater runoff can move through aquatic food chains. Pollutants are absorbed by aquatic plants and animals called phytoplankton and zooplankton. That pollution is then passed on when salmon and other fish eat these plants and animals. Eventually, the southern resident orcas eat polluted salmon, and toxic pollution accumulates in their blubber. This can make the orcas sick, and it makes it very hard for orcas to have healthy calves. And unfortunately, once water is polluted, it's very difficult to clean up. Oil from cars, boats, or spills doesn't mix with water, so it can float on top of water or settle on the bottom of the seafloor for a very long time. Chemicals may dilute in water or become less harmful over time, but they can cause a lot of damage in the process. And we may be able to remove larger pieces of litter from water, but smaller pieces are nearly impossible to remove. Because it's so difficult to clean up polluted water, it's always best to try and prevent or stop pollution from happening in the first place. Scientists and engineers at Tacoma's Center for Urban Waters have been tracking pollution and water quality in Puget Sound for the past 20 years. Water quality is a measure of how clean and healthy water is. If water quality is good, then lots of plants and animals can live and thrive in an aquatic habitat. If water quality is poor, many plants and animals will struggle to survive in that habitat. Over the past 20 years, we have seen a 50 to 80% reduction of chemicals entering Puget Sound from stormwater runoff. This is great progress, but we can still do more to improve local water quality. Our goal is to make local waterways so clean that they are swimmable, fishable, and even drinkable. And this is possible, but only with your help. Pollution comes from our communities. Humans are the source of most pollution. But knowing this, being able to identify the problem, helps us come up with solutions so that only rain goes down the storm drain. Together, we can stop pollution and improve water quality by making sure to fix or repair oil leaks from cars as soon as we see them, washing our cars at a commercial car wash instead of on the street, driveway, or lawn. We can use compost instead of chemical fertilizers to help plants grow. We can pull weeds by hand instead of using chemicals to kill weeds. When it comes to pet waste, we can scoop it, bag it, and trash it. We can make sure that trash gets to the right place and pick up litter when we see it. And we can plant rain gardens to help filter stormwater. Remember, if it hits the ground, it hits the sound. So let's put these solutions to pollution into practice in our communities to protect local waterways and southern resident orcas. Thanks for watching.
Hey there, I'm John with the Enviro Challenger program from the city of Tacoma, and today I'd like to talk to you about what rain gardens are and how they help orcas. Basically, it's a bowl-shaped garden that is dug up, filled in with plants and spongy soils that will hold, slow, and filter rainwater. Usually, they're built next to a roof or a patio, maybe a sidewalk or your driveway, someplace where they're going to catch the water that's flowing off of that hard surface. They look great and help to naturally filter pollutants from going into our storm drains, streams, and ultimately our Puget Sound. Building a rain garden can be broken down into 3 basic components: soil, plants, and mulch. Your soil is literally the foundation of your rain garden. It should be about 6 to 10 inches deep and in a bowl-like depression where it can catch that rainwater. The mixture is often half sand, quarter compost, and a quarter topsoil. You want a soil that will absorb water quickly, offer filtration, and definitely support the plant's growth. Remember, your rain garden is going to work best with plants that will thrive in our local environment. So when you're choosing plants, here are a few things you can consider. Remember, your plants will be submerged in water some of the time, so you may want to select plants for wetland edges. Consider the light needs of your plants. Things like Western Bleeding Heart love the full sun, or Evergreen Huckleberry will take some partial sun or shade, and Salal loves a full shade environment. You want your plants to be a benefit to the birds, the bees, and the butterflies. And it should be nice to look at. After you've placed your plants throughout the garden, you're going to want to put a layer of mulch down. Now, you can put a layer of wood chips up to about 4 inches deep, and this will help to fight back the weeds. It'll help to absorb water when it's wet and rainy, and then it'll actually help to water the plants when it's drier. Be sure to leave some space around your plants so they don't get smothered by the mulch. In the long run, mulch will help your plants be stable and strong and thrive. Now that we have all that together, here's how it works to help orcas. After it rains, the runoff will pick up and carry harmful forms of pollution like oil, pet waste, fertilizers, and other harmful chemicals down to the Puget Sound. Rain gardens use a combination of plants and the soil to filter some of that pollution out of the rainwater before it gets down to our storm drains. Local plants tend to have extensive root systems that help them survive in drier times. This allows them to drink up large amounts of water and at the same moment store chemicals and excess nutrients from the water. Soil also absorbs water, but at the same time, it locks up pollutants from the runoff where time and microbes will break it down. In a year, even a small rain garden can filter thousands of gallons of water. Not only that, but they absorb something like 30% more water than an equal-sized patch of lawn. And that's how they help during a drought. They absorb that water during the wet and rainy season, and then they dole it out during the dry season to the surrounding plants. Rain gardens also help to reduce flooding by pooling the water and slowing it down before it rushes into our streets and into our waterways. So if you're thinking about building a rain garden, it's good to know they're low maintenance. But let's be clear, low maintenance doesn't mean no maintenance. For your rain garden to function well, here's a few things to consider. Every year, you're going to need to add some mulch to your rain garden. It will break down over time, and some of it will wash away in heavy rains. Weeds are going to grow in your garden. It's a great place for plants to grow, and weeds are plants. So make sure to pick them out until your plants have matured. Every garden needs a little bit of weeding from time to time. This way, the plants you want to stick around will thrive. I know this is going to sound crazy, but don't neglect to water your plants, at least not at first. All plants need time to get established, and you can't be sure that it's going to rain the moment that you put your plants in your rain garden. Once established, rain gardens with local plants will generally thrive on our local rain patterns, but you'll have to be diligent during dry times. If there's a drought, you'll probably have to go out and give them a little water. Finally, you'll need to remove and replace any dead plants and debris from your garden. This is an important part of keeping your garden attractive and vibrant. Thanks for watching.
Hi, I'm Jaqueline Fuller. I'm with the Enviro Challenger, City of Tacoma, and we're here at Point Defiance Raingarden. And I have with me Jessica Knickerbocker, the head engineer on this project. So Jessica, why did you become an engineer?
Well, I actually became an environmental engineer because, cheesy as it is, I wanted to save the world.
Awesome.
So, wanted to protect places, beautiful places like Puget Sound and, of course, the Orcas.
Right, right. So why here?
Why here? Well, actually, it was a partnership that we had with Metro Parks and the school district. We came together and they knew they were doing the rest of this redevelopment and thought what a great opportunity to partner with the city. And it's kind of interesting, that partnership, the three districts, made this rain garden bigger and better than any other. And it was really their inspiration that made us think bigger than we normally do. Which is actually more than the North End wastewater treatment plant, if you can imagine.
That is amazing. That is amazing.
If you were to imagine all of the Point Defiance Park flipped on up the hill, that would give you an idea of how much water is actually coming here.
That is awesome. Well, thank you very much. We're going to take a deeper look into the rain garden now.
Awesome.
Thank you.
We took the stormwater and the rainwater and tried to get it away from the cities and away from the people as fast as we could, which is detrimental to the salmon and the shellfish and the organisms living in Puget Sound.
Polluted stormwater runoff is a problem because when we built our cities and our towns, we didn't think about where the rainwater would flow.
Catch basins and pipe is all you saw probably until, like, I don't know, 70s or 80s. That's almost 100 years of developed city streets with not much of a nod towards stormwater. And so there's a need.
But now we've realized polluted runoff is a problem, and it's actually the biggest water quality problem in the state. We've realized the harm we're doing to our salmon populations, our swimming holes, even our drinking water. We can fix this. We've found solutions, but because we've already built out our cities and our towns, we need solutions that can retrofit that urban landscape. And green retrofits is the best option.
Using natural processes to clean up stormwater makes all the sense in the world. It made a lot of sense to just get it back in the ground. The ground knows what to do.
By taking this approach, it could change the way that we do business in stormwater. The stormwater funding, the grant funding that we've received has been instrumental in getting green infrastructure off the ground in Tacoma.
The local governments, the state, environmental organizations came together and developed a financial assistance program because we knew that local government alone wouldn't be able to fund the changes. And really the changes that are going to occur are going to benefit all the citizens of the state.
At Washington Environmental Council, we work with local cities and counties to make sure they're getting the funding they need to tackle these big retrofit projects.
This project at Point Defiance is a regional stormwater treatment facility. It treats 756 acres from a residential neighborhood. It's one of the first of its kind to treat something on that large of a scale. The dirty stormwater comes into these large pools that then overflow into the treatment cells down the channel and through the engineered awesomeness of the pools. And then it filters through that media, which is dirt and soil and plants and mulch, and then it comes out through this swale to go to Puget Sound. So if we can mimic those natural processes, using the plants to the best of their abilities and removing the stormwater, it's going to be a much more sustainable approach.
We as a city, we installed our first rain garden in like 2001. We went ahead and said, well, why don't we try to assign people these rain gardens, to adopt them, and we called them stewards. The missus is going to come down tonight with our daughter, and we're going to go for a walk and have a beer at a brewery, and it might be a brewery that's right in front of one of our projects.
All the water running down the road from Magnolia will collect into this little runoff spot here, and then it'll run into the plants, it'll feed the plants, and the greenery kind of creates like a natural filter for water.
Everyone loves our rain gardens. It makes the streets a little more green. Not a concrete jungle, adds a little more softness and walkability to the area.
You'd be surprised what a little bit of greenery and a little bit of community involvement, be surprised what that can do as far as brightening up your downtown areas. This really is a smarter, more sustainable approach to stormwater infrastructure in an urban area. It's much simpler to manage and maintain.
Green infrastructure, it supports the triple bottom line. It's cost effective, it's better for the environment, makes it more walkable for people in the community that's around it, and it treats stormwater.
Cities and counties can't do this work on their own. They need our support and bigger funding matches to scale up the solutions to adequately solve these big problems. Funding that allows them to truly tackle this work that restores our Puget Sound and provides healthy habitat, healthy communities for all of us.